everybody, and welcome back for the Task 4.3 video. This is actually going to be a bit of a continuation of what we did in Task 4.2. So what we're going to do in this video is kind of the reverse of what we did in Task 4.2. The one learning target for today is I can identify a variable or an expression and interpret it in the context of a problem. Now, what that means is that today we're going to be basically going backwards from what we did. I'm going to give you an expression using variables, and you're going to tell me what does that mean in addition to what units we would be using. So last time I gave you words and I said, please create an expression. Now I'm going to give you an expression and say, please write the words. It says here, Elvira has a friend who runs an ice cream shop. She decides to share some of her techniques for keeping track of information about selling lunches with her friend so that her friend can gather information about how much ice cream she sells and the kinds of ice cream she sells. She decides to keep track of the information that is listed in the table below. So she's looking at C, which is the number of chocolate ice creams sold. The units would be ice creams. S, which is the number of strawberry ice creams that were sold. Again, ice creams. V is the number of vanilla ice creams that are sold. Again, that's measured in ice creams. Price per ice cream would be dollars per ice cream, which is P. M is the number of minutes it takes to make each ice cream order, which would be minutes per ice cream. And D is the number of days she's open each week, which we would measure in days. So using these words, we want to tell, what does this mean? Well, in this expression, we can see C is the number of chocolate ice creams sold. So C would be the number of chocolate ice creams plus S would be the number of strawberry ice creams. Well, that means that our interpretation would be, because we're adding them together, we would say the total, because we're adding them together, and total means add. And then we would say number of chocolate ice creams chocolate, there we go, ice creams, and since S is for strawberry, we would say strawberry ice creams that we sold. So we're using the total to mean plus. C is for chocolate, S is for strawberry. Now, when we talk about units here, if we're finding the total number of ice creams that we sold, even if it's just chocolate plus strawberry, since we're finding the ice creams that we sold, our units here would just be measured in ice creams. Now, what if we said C plus S plus V? So now we're adding the C and the S, just like we did last time, which means the chocolate plus the strawberry, but we are also adding the V for vanilla. Then we're going to be finding the total, because we're adding, number of chocolate and strawberry and vanilla ice creams. That we sold. So we're adding them all up. Now, again, our units here, if we're finding the number of ice creams that we sold, our units here are just going to be measured in ice creams. Okay, next, C times M. Well, if we go back to our table, C is the number of chocolate ice creams and M is the number of minutes it takes to make each ice cream. So C would be the chocolate ice creams the number of chocolate ice creams. M is the number of minutes per ice cream. In other words, now we're talking about time because we're multiplying by minutes here. So the interpretation would be the number of minutes or the amount of time that we spend making chocolate ice cream. As our units, since we're measuring the amount of time that it takes to make chocolate ice creams, our units here would just be minutes because we're finding the time. If we have SM, it's very similar. It's going to be the amount of time, because M is for time, that we spend making strawberry ice cream, because this time it's just S instead of C. And again, our units here, if we're finding the amount of time it takes to do something, is going to just be minutes. Now for problem number 5, we're looking at P, which I believe, if we go back to our table, stood for price. So now we're going to be doing C, which stands for chocolate ice creams, times the price per ice cream. Well, that means we're going to be finding the amount of money that we spent, the amount of money that was earned using chocolate ice cream. So we would say, because P is for price per ice cream, we would say the amount of money earned from, in this case, C is for chocolate, so we would say from chocolate ice cream. Now again, if we're trying to find the amount of money, our units here would just be measured in dollars, because we're finding the amount of money that it takes to do that, or that we earned from doing this. In a very similar way, if we have SP, then now we're just going to be doing the amount of money earned, this time instead of from chocolate ice cream, from strawberry. And again, if we're finding the amount of money, that's just going to be measured in dollars. In problem number 7, we're starting to add together some of the things we already talked about. So CM, if you go back to problem 3 at the top, was the amount of time from chocolate ice cream. SM was the amount of time making strawberry ice cream. R, I believe R is actually a typo here. This should have been a V instead of an R, would be from vanilla ice cream. So if we're adding these all up, it's going to be the total amount of time from all of the ice cream. So here we would say the total amount of time from all of the ice cream all put together. So we would say from all of the ice cream. Because we're adding up all the ice cream here. As far as our units go, if we're finding the total amount of time, our units here would just be minutes, because we're finding the time that it takes. Last but not least, and this is the trickiest one, it says C plus S plus, this should be V. I apologize. That's a bit of a typo again. Should be C plus S plus V all over D. Now, when we want to interpret this, we need to remember that divide means per. So let's look at the top first. C plus S plus V means all of the ice creams added together. So the total amount of ice cream divided by means per. D stands for days. So our answer here would be the total amount of ice cream per, because we're dividing, day, because D is for days. Now that means our units should also be dividing. For total amount of ice cream, we would just say ice creams. And for day, we would just say day. So our units would be ice creams per day. All right, that is it for today. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for some practice.